Yes, yes, Shubham.
Okay. Okay, cool. So let me begin with a short story. Some years back, I was working with a large bank as part of their agile transformation. One of the key problems business stakeholders had was for them, IT had become a black hole where business needs could go in, but nothing will come out. And as you can guess, the organization was using waterfall approach for software development, and that was not giving dividend to them. So that was why the bank wanted to move towards more efficient approach, which is a agile approach, and that's exactly the reason why people are embracing agile in the last 20 years. With agile approach, the initial idea was to have at least one potential shippable product by the end of the sprint. Later, with the introduction of the continuous delivery and continuous deployment, people could deploy multiple times in a day. How, however, we still need to understand why exactly we need to have high deployment frequency and high stability. So, so if you look at the is successful measure of the performance, there are two different key characteristics. One is outcome over output. So we are looking for outcome rather than the output. And the outcome which we are looking for should be a global outcome and should not be a localized outcome. So, with that example, let's say uh, we are looking for the high delivery rate or high deployment rates, but at the same time, the quality is very poor. So in that case, what may happen is that we may, as a developers, move those production deployment to the ops. And because if you see that the operations is more focused towards making the production stable, so they will be repulsing with the uh, repulsing that kind of poor quality uh, increment. So in that case, you will see that at one side, people are getting rewarded to get more production deployment, but at the same time, the DevOps folks or operations folks are rewarded for making sure that the deployment is stable. So it is. So if you see, as you see that it is, if we look the outcome in a localized form, then it is not going to work. So there will be a kind of friction between both of them, and it will not make much sense. So it will be important that uh, both ideas are working together. So we want to have the high deployment frequency but at the same time, we want to have the high stability in the production as well. So these both teams needs to work together to achieve that. So that is an important idea. So as we have this understanding, high deployment frequency along with the high stability, the question remains why exactly you want to do that. So to answer that, let's take a look on this screen. So if you see that if you want to move if you are working on any feature or any project, it may have requirements. Then and then you start having some development, you do the testing, and then you make a release. If you see from the learning perspective, you may be having some learning when you are gathering the requirements and you're doing the analysis. And at the same time, most of the learning happens when something is in the hand of the users. Because only when something is in the hand of the user can use it and then provide the feedback whether it is working for them or not. It is very important to understand here, whenever we talk about the value generation can never happen a user doesn't use it. For example, let's say you are working on a feature and that feature is sitting with you, then it has no value. It may be considered as waste in the lean terms. But if that feature goes to moves to production, user starts using it, then you may consider that some value may be there. Sometimes it may happen that the feature has moved to production, but still nobody uses it in the production. So again, the value generation is zero in that case. So from the product development point of view, what we want to understand is we want to solve the problem that the users have, and as we solve the problem users have, that helps in generating the business metrics in terms of revenue and other things. So the basic important thing is that is your software or the product is useful for the users or not. So that is the important metric. So in order to understand that, we move things to production. We get the feedback, and based on the feedback, we do the iteration in terms of improving that feature or product further. So if you see that in both of these things, the most some learning happens during the requirements phase, and most of the learning happens when we do the release. And as you can guess, that very little learning really happens during the development and QA phase. So what we want to do is we want to reduce. I mean, time. This particular time may be huge in the product development, and that's what we want to reduce. So what we want to do is, using continuous deployment, we want to reduce this or shorten the development cycle, so that we can, from the requirement, we can move to release quickly. We can have more learning based on the measurements which we have in the production. We go back and you make further iteration in the changes. Again, start having some learning from the production. So that becomes very important. Now, the thing is, in many organization, this whole thing of making release to production becomes very tedious, and sometimes it may take days or weeks just to move to production, and then because of that, that may be one of the reasons why people may not be making many releases. And the reason is, like, when you are having a big release and which is moving to production, it is bound to take more time. So one of the important saying in the continuous integration is, if it is hard to do something, you are not doing it often enough. So in case the production deployment is hard, that means you are not doing it often enough. And if the delta is small, so is the risk. So one of the important thing which comes out from this is that instead of doing these deployments once in a while, once in a month, or once in a 2 months, it is important that these deployments are done more often, so that the amount of risk which is associated with each deployment of the production is small. And because of that risk, I mean, that becomes very important, because with a small risk, you can move to production quickly, and you can still get the feedback which you're looking for. So early, instead of getting very late in the game. So that becomes pretty important. So the crux is that instead of doing the deployments late, it is important if we can do it more often, so to reduce the risk involved in making the deployments. And then the whole idea is to have the learning from the production. So if you see, the whole idea of attaining the high release frequency is not the goal. it is a mean towards a goal. That the releasing frequently with small increments is a way to deliver a good product. So if you release frequently with the small increments, you reduce the risk. You learn technically and from the business point of view both, and that way you make the measurements whether the feature which you just deployed, anybody is using it or not, are they facing any issues or not, and then you make the continuous improvements towards that. So that is a major goal uh, which we are looking for, and having the high release frequency just enable to do that. Fine. Now, if you look at the benefits of high deployment frequency, there are a couple of benefits which comes out. One is you start getting the feedback from the user, and based on the feedback, you may be making the changes uh, quickly. Instead of making the changes very late in the game, you make those changes quickly and get the related dividend for that from that. As you see that in as and we explained already, in case we have the higher release of deployment frequency, because the amount of delta which is involved in moving to production is small, then the amount of risk is small as well. Fine. So this becomes very important, that the amount of risk involved becomes low. Fine. Uh, I mean, you definitely understand that when we say any production deployment, there may be certain things which must be in place to make it happen. So, for example, appropriate rollback, appropriate the fallback mechanism. So all those things must be there in case something goes wrong. But the amount of risk involved in a small release or deployment is smaller compared to the huge release, because in the huge release the risk may come from many different directions. Fine. So the third thing is enhanced team morale. So one important thing which you may see in your team is every day we are talking about what you are doing and what has been achieved so far, but nothing has moved to production. So the feeling of moving something into the production is indescribable because that way you are as a team we see that something which we have developed is actually being used by the users for whom we are making it. So instead of just making and keeping it doesn't make much a lot of happiness in the team. So that in case you're moving things to production quickly or frequently, it enhances the team morale. And the last thing is it helps in improving the trust with the customer as well. So one is the case where you meet the customer once in 2 months, uh, and here you customer knows that you may be able to come back with the results in a couple of days. There is continuous discussion about what has moved, what has not moved, where exactly we are, how much has been delivered to the production. So that helps in improving the trust with the customer. So now let's try to see, before we get into the reasons uh, on why some teams don't deploy to the production early. So I may ask you guys to look at two most important reasons why people don't really move their deployments to production early. So can you just put your notes in the chat box? Two most important reasons which you see that because of which we don't really move to the production quickly. So I hope people get my question. So two reasons why we don't do production deployment quickly. Any reasons? Looking in the chat box currently. One reply has come about the feedback. Anything else? Insufficient testing. So that becomes a important reason, and it may be signifying a smell of not having enough automated testing. Another is feedback. Maybe somebody can explain when they say feedback what that actually means. Then there is a security risk. Fine, security risk. Okay. Anybody want to explain what that feedback means? Okay, so we will just take these some points. So want a perfect result. Okay, want proper testing. Okay, good. Got it. Fine. Okay, so these are some of the reasons which we see, which we feel because of which we don't really go to the production quickly. So let's see what came up came out apart from what you just mentioned. What other things can be reasons? So I think the one thing which you already mentioned is uh, no perceived value in deploying incomplete product or feature. So that may be one of the reasons. Second thing is fear of unknown. Fear of unknown means in case production deployment goes wrong, then what will happen to the reputation, and that the production deployment may go wrong with because of many different reasons. There may be security problems, there can be testing issues, there can be different. So there may be tons of different issues. But uh, when we are saying that people are doing the lot of production deployments, I'm giving an example of a bank uh, where it's a world-renowned bank, and one of the one of the metric they have in their bank is each person in their team should be able to make one production deployment in a week. So in case, for example, there are 10 people in their team, then they should be able to make at least 10 deployments. And there are lots of different teams which are making more deployments into the production. So what they do is they make sure that whatever problems may be coming from different directions like security, testing, um, and uh, in terms of the rollback. So all those things are taken care of. And when they are taken care of as part of the process and as part of their automation, then and in case something goes wrong, they have mechanism how to roll back the previous version. So they don't fear the production deployment anymore. Fine. So that is one reason which we just mentioned. Another reason is regulatory or compliance concerns, because of which we don't want to go live. There may be business or strategic reasons as well. So let's take a look. what does research say? So this is a research which happened for around 4 years. There were around 23,000 survey responses collected across the world, 2,000 unique organizations from small startups to under 5 employees to large enterprises with more than 10,000 employees. And so uh, they collected the data around the throughput and stability together. So in their results, it came out that throughput and stability move together. An organization's ability to make software positively impacts profitability. So in case they are able to make software positive software changes, then it directly impacts their profitability, productivity, and market share. So if you compare the low performance with the high performance, and just to make sure that this has been a data of 2017, and there have been more changes towards this data further. So in comparison to the low performers, the high performers had 46 times more frequent code deployments, 440 times faster lead time from commit to deploy, 170 times faster mean time to recover from downtime. So again, it is about the stability part. And the last one is 5 times lower change fail rate. Fine. So in case they are making the changes, the change fail rate is lower, 5 times lower. So if you see from this report research, four measurements came out of it. From the as part of software delivery performance. One is the deployment frequency, and second is the change lead time. So the time it takes from a work to get implemented into the productions. So that people generally refer it to the cycle time as well. Then time to restore service. How much time generally it takes to restore the service in case the production goes down? And then also how in a specific time, like let's say, for example, 30 days, how many change failure rate may be there in the production. So if you see that this is a combination of the metrics which are on the deployment side as well as on the stability side, right? So people these metrics are called DORA metrics, and people a lot of organizations have embraced this idea. So what they have been doing these days is that they focus on these metrics on based on the foundation of the Agile Manifesto. So Agile Manifesto talks about individual and interaction or processing tools, working software, our comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration, and responding to the change. So with this foundation, uh, people are looking to make sure that they have the DORA metrics implemented. And that is where I'm talking about the organizations where the focus is on higher deployment frequency, uh, low lead time to changes. That means low cycle time. And then uh, there is high amount of stability as well. Fine. So now, as we understand why people are moving towards a high deployment frequency, and there are industry-based research around it and the facts around it, let's try to see why some teams have low release frequency. So one is people have long running feature branches. So it may happen that you are working on a feature and that feature has been going on for a long period of time. Sometimes that feature finishing takes a couple of months. So the people call them as a feature branches. When you have the feature branches, then they have some implicit issues. One is you have the big merges. So whenever you are making the merge to the master, the merge will be huge. and when the any merge is huge, then there are associated conflicts around it. So there will be integration and functional issues, and getting to production takes a lot of time. Then big changes to the code base translate. So big risk, as I mentioned before, in case the delta is high or big, then the amount of risk involved is high as well. So that is the second reason. And the uh, and then the user receives the value delivery late, thereby gets a chance to provide the feedback towards the very end. So in case nothing is going into the production, user can't do anything, and you cannot provide any feedback. Sometimes it may happen that the feedback that the user provided towards the very end may may mean that you need to make some huge design changes, or otherwise the user has to bear your release which you have delivered. Fine. So that is the idea of what the problem with the long running feature branches. Now these are other problems which are associated with low release frequency or low deployment frequency. So one is high work in progress and flat burn down rate. I will be flat burn down chart. I will be explaining that further. Not having alignment as a team on definition of value and small increment. What exactly the value means. So that there is no alignment around that as a team. And when we say that small increment, what does it actually mean? So we'll be explaining that as well. Not able to slice stories small enough. So the work which you have may be pretty big, and you must be facing issues in slicing it further. So because of that, the big chunk takes a lot of time to move to production. So let's focus on the first one, which is about not having the alignment as a team on the definition of value and small increment. So as I said before, any value from a software feature gets generated only when it gets in the hand of the user, and that user uses it. Uh, or it helps in improving the overall user experience. Fine. So so that becomes very important when we think about the value. In order to get the value in the hand of the in the user faster, sometimes it is important to focus on the intent of the work which you're doing. Sometimes what may happen is that as developers, we take the requirement as is and then start developing it. We don't really question what exactly we are trying to do and why. And that why is very important. So for example, in this case, it may sound like the requirement is just to make a car, full-fledged car, and then the team starts working towards that. But when they dig deeper further, they've realized that that was not actually the intent or the reason of the requirement or the need. The need was that the user was wanted to go from point A to point B faster. Fine. Now, as we understand the intent, what can happen is we can help achieving that intent faster with different kind of solutions. Fine. So in this case, if I want to move from point A to point B faster, then I can provide different options, and I can keep improving those options iteratively uh, with the span of time. Fine. Sometimes quickly, I just can provide a cycle uh, or similar, and then I can work towards improving the user experience further as much as I can. So that is the continuous journey that you are working towards improving the user experience. But as you understand the intent, instead of building the car in the previous example, you will try to see how you can help the user to achieve his need or objective faster. uh, and that becomes very important. With that really helps in creating more releases. Another thing which becomes important is that sometimes we may be working in a way where, let's say, for example, I, I, I'm working on a monolithic painting. Now, the it has multiple dependencies. So there are two teams, team beta, team gamma. So that team beta and team gamma needs to provide me a web service or microservice which needs to generate some data. Fine. So what may happen is in the current case is that I may work on the UI as a whole, and then other teams may be working on those microservices. Till they are not finished, I don't really integrate. And only after integration, I may be having, when we start doing the integration, I may be facing some certain issues in the integration which I may want to solve. But then if you see that this whole thing really happens towards the very end, this integration and uh, joining things together. Instead of that, what may happen is that if you understand what is the first iteration which we want to deliver, it may be the first possible use case of that particular screen. In that scenario, what may happen is that you want to have bare minimal UI, and then for that particular use case, the amount of data which is required is can be minimal. So you may not want to handle all the use cases of this monolithic painting. You just want to focus on the first use case, and that data is given. So that data can be created and given quickly, and then this iteration is created. Then the second use case of what user is going to have, use that particular screen or this painting. Then that second iteration happens, in which as a UI developer, I make some changes, and then the dependent teams makes their own changes and again do the integration. So with this, what may happen is that in each iteration, you are able to showcase something which is usable or provide value to the user. In this case, till the release 3, nothing is really uh, delivered. So that also happens, because of which people don't deliver uh, towards the very end, and they have very low release frequency. Fine. Any question on this use case which I just mentioned here? Anybody is having any question here? If anybody has any question, then I can explain it again. Otherwise, I can move further. Okay, so then as I mentioned, that there is a question about what exactly the idea of the valuable and viable. So that creates a lot of confusion in the team. So what we generally understand is that something, if until that is finished totally, we cannot really move that to production. Fine. And that makes sense, because uh, in case something which we have delivered, user cannot use it, then what is the point of delivering into the production? So that is a immediate response which comes out. But think about it a little more actually. So let's say uh, I'm working on a e-commerce website. I create a login page just to make sure that in order to make sure that, in order to have this e-commerce website working for the user, it needs to have a lot of different uh, features working together. So search should be working, payment should be working, and so you understand what I mean with that. So login is just one part of it. But if you see that login, I mean, though the user workflow will be working together with all these features, but then it doesn't really mean that individually those features are not of having value. So they are valuable, fine, but then they are, I mean, on its own, the login feature is not viable for the user. So it has the value, potential value, but not viable, fine. So so that may be happening for many cases for your features as well. So you should be able to slice your features in a way which provides the potential value to the customer, but then it's still not viable. So that is what you, in that case, what you can do is you can move that feature to, or that slice to production, and then have a feature toggle on. That means that feature will not be visible to the end user, but still should be in the production. So that is the case or scenario which happens in many times um, in all the softwares which we use. Like for example, Facebook or WhatsApp. So all their binaries must be having a lot of different production deployments which are not visible to the user because of the feature toggles. So with when we do that, then as I said before, we are moving smaller delta to the production and then able to uh, handle the amount of risk early in the game. So that is the basic idea over there. So in case we understand the difference between the valuable and viable, then we should be able to slice our feature into smaller slices further, and then can move to the production faster. So that is another point. And then there is high whip or flat burn down, which creates problems basically. So in case a team is working on, let's say, in many cases, what happens is that you have a team of 5 people. Each person in your team is working on a one user story. Fine. Uh, so so that means in that case, what may happen is towards the very end, when the sprint is going to be closed, there is a uh, probability that many of the stories are not really done or not finished, and that those not finished stories move to the next sprint. So in this case, if you see that there are 3 stories, and the probability, if you see the probability, uh, in one case 2 stories are finished, one is, no, sorry, one story is finished, 2 are not. Second scenario is 2 stories are finished, one is not. So there are multiple permutation combination which can happen and in the worst case scenario, it may happen that nothing is really done. Fine. So that is so that amounts to the leakage which happens when you are working alone uh, on a user story at any point of time in your team. Fine. In case you start working together, then it may happen that uh, you will be taking the story into in progress only when something is finished. Fine. So you will not be taking anything else. So in case you work together, then in the amount of leakage will be small. So the permutation combination is that 3 stories are done or 2 stories are done, which reduce the leakage. So what you can do is, instead of working on too many stories at any point of time, you can reduce the amount of stories which you are working upon, and maybe start working together as a team so that those stories can finish faster. So if you look at the overall suggestions to improve the release frequency, so one is you can have the short-lived branches, so that merges to the master happens quite frequently. Second is bring the user in the center of all the conversation. So that means you understand the intent of the work you are trying to do. And when you understand that, you may be able to reach there to the towards the goal faster, instead of just looking at the requirement in isolation. Then the third one is about collaborate as a team. So that will help in finishing a piece of work faster again. Fine. And then uh, this last thing is that when you start doing, in many cases, the user story slices emerge when we know more and code more. And so these slices are in the addition to the slices identified as part of the planning. So this is the last piece about last section of this presentation. So this is about mechanics of high frequency deployment. So one is you understand who the user is and her pain point and the problem. Don't expect a solution from the user. So that is not the job of the team. That is a job of the team and not of the user. Fine, because the user may just expect a faster horse, and not a car actually. So solution revolutionary solutions may be coming from the team, not from the user. Understand the intent behind the user's request, and that is where I said, like, the intent when I say that faster horse versus a car, the intent is moving from point A to point B and not the solution itself. So you can develop the solution based on the constraints and the need you have. Then the client and business need to understand the idea of the iterative approach. So they should be aligned that this is how we're going to work, and this is going to give us the dividend. And then there has to be a close customer collaboration. Now, so when you have these prerequisites available, then you come up with several solution choices. Fine. Because based on the intent which we discussed, so based on that and the constraint which we have, we may come up with different solutions choices. The team and the customer and the client can collaborate and define the solution which the team is going to implement, and then you can do the story slicing. When we talk about the story slicing, then we are actually talking about the vertical slicing. Vertical slicing means that instead of you doing the web UI part in isolation, that and considering it as a one slice, backend as another slice. What we mean is that there is a slice. I mean, in this case, a slice which contains all of these layers together. So in case you want to taste a cake, you don't want to I mean just take the chocolate part or the uh, or the cream part. Fine. You want to have a vertical slice which will give you the taste of the cake even if it is very thin. Fine. So that becomes important, that uh, whenever you have the slice, that should be end to end. So with this idea, so let's take a look of an example how we can slice a very simple use case into tons of vertical slices. So what we are trying to do in this case is we want to build a retail calculator app just to make sure that you don't need to confuse it with any e-commerce or e-commerce website. So it's just a simple calculator. So what it does is it has 3 input, 1 output. Input is how many number of an item. So you can put 3, 4, 5, whatever. Price per item. What is the price for that for one item? And then There can be two-letter state code for calculating the state text. Fine. So with this, I just want to understand like how much is the cost, uh, uh, considering the tax as well. So the output is total price of an order includes that, and you should be able to include the discount based on the value of an order added with the sale tax. So what we need to do is we need to identify 8 to 10 demoable slices that will take you to, I mean, nothing to 5 states and 5 discounts. Fine. Uh, so slice is only valid when it is a vertical slice, as I mentioned before, and the next slice should be more valuable than the last slice. And I want sales tax before doing anything with discounts. So yeah, so that is the idea. So I hope you get the point. Any any of the slices which you can think of, like I want to build this calculator app. So what could be the possible slices which I can have for this calculator app? Anybody want to share their responses? Just to make sure that no, all your responses should be fine. I mean, don't worry about that. So try to come up what could be the possible ways to have certain slices which can move to the production. Anybody want to share that? I not not looking at any responses as of now. So let's try to see what could be the possible different slices. So first thing which can happen is that uh, I have the input and which is the quantity and the price. So I can just echo that quantity and the price on a screen. This is kind of creating a walking skeleton. A walking skeleton is something like in case you are creating a screen and it has many different uh, I mean, dependencies, like for example, you need to get some data from different microservice and things like that. So the UI may be talking to a microservice which does nothing. That means it it just gets the input and respond with the same input. So the microservice doesn't have any logic, but you are able to connect with that microservice. So the dependencies and the UI are connected together and they are able to ping each other. So that is the idea of the walking skeleton. In this case, we are also building a walking skeleton and because we don't need to have any sort of microservice and things like that. What we just do is whatever the input which is coming from the UI in form of quantity and price, we are just echoing it, and so that becomes our first slice, and that just gives you a kind of demonstration of our technical capability that we are able to move that piece into the production. The second slice is that we we calculate the order value of for one state. So because it is just one state, then we can just hard code the sales test, the state text for that particular state. So that becomes the first slice. So we can go live with one state for which the state text value is hard coded. Then another slice can happen is that instead of entering the state code, what we can do is we can add the or put the sales tax percentage on the screen. So that way we should be able to calculate the order price with the sales tax without mentioning the state code. So that can become another slice. The fourth slice is that we can support the two states instead of one state. We can start supporting the two state, then another for three state. So that becomes our fifth slice. In the sixth slice, we want to focus on making sure that a discount is considered, a hardcore discount is considered. So that becomes another slice. So and then you can have a discount percentage. So that becomes another vertical slice to you. So that way, if you see that there are around 10 different slices which can happen, vertical slices which can happen for this particular app. And all these vertical slices can go into the production. Fine. So instead of thinking technically, we need to think from the functional standpoint and see what can be adding the value to the customer or the user, what we can come up with. Sometimes that may be a technical release as well, because we are still delivering the valuable part, but it's not yet viable. So that is also fine. So that way, if you see that we are able to make the slices and can move them to the production. So that is the last slide of this presentation. Any questions from anybody on this one? Any questions anybody is having? Please feel free to put them on the chat box, and I'll be answering them. Okay, so this is one point which came from Aman to explain the slices again. So let me just share again the screen. So so the first slice which I just mentioned is about having a walking skeleton. Walking skeleton means that whatever dependencies which you need to have to make a screen or a feature, they need to be there and should be connected to each other, even though they do nothing. So it may happen, let's say something which is supposed to be providing you data, but the data doesn't exist yet. So the service can respond with respond you with the output. I mean, with the same input. Like let's say I ask for a country code, so then it just respond with the country code itself, or the dummy response. Fine. So that with that, what happens is you are able to connect with different movable components, and they are able to ping each other, and then you can add meat to them on gradual basis. So that becomes your first slice, walking skeleton. In this case, what we are doing is we are just whatever the input which we have on the screen, which is the quantity and price. We are just printing that on the screen. So that is the first slice. The second slice is we just focus on getting the order value for one state instead of five different states. So we can start with one state and get that live uh, for that. Let's say for example, this is for the California, so we go live with California. Now the next slice is that apart from quantity and the price, I should be able to enter the sales tax percentage as well. So instead of figuring out different states and their sales tax, I just enter the sales tax directly. Fine. So that way, this provides me the next slice. Then I, instead of focusing on one state, I can focus on two state. Then I can add three more state. Then I start focusing on this discount. So I can start with a hardcore discount. Then I can focus on the discount which is having the discount percentage. And then there can be other levels of discount like that is the eighth slice. Then you want to validate the quantity and the price, and then you can validate the state code as well. So these are the different slices. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so any other question from anybody? Okay, so thank you so much for your time. I hope this session was useful. Uh, and in case of any questions further, you can connect me over the LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, hi, Shrikant. Thank you so much for the incredible insights today. And to all of you who have joined, thank you for staying engaging and being an active audience. I am sharing a feedback form in the chat. You all can go ahead and please post your valuable outcomes. And also, just give me a second. So, guys, for more such events and for more such insightful sessions, you can follow us on LinkedIn under the name of Bill Piper, and also you can join our community. You guys can take a screenshot from it or you can scan directly.